In the Boud model, the naming of barriers for the reflective practitioner becomes a key way to overcome the barriers associated with the emotions and feelings generated by the experience. And in the second stage of Boud's model, where the reflective practitioner is attending to their feelings, attending to the emotional response of the experience, the individual is focusing, reflecting on, in a very private way, on that emotional response. And this is a significant barrier for the reflective practitioner, simply because no matter how much learning is available to us by reflection, there is an inherent difficulty for the reflective practitioner because the emotional response that they may have from reflecting on experience can actually create certain discomfort and certain anxieties associated with their professional role. And indeed, some teachers even talk about reflection as being quite painful, simply because the individual process is difficult to deal with. And if we knew that, even if we know the end point can be valuable, the process that we have to go through becomes so difficult that we can actually tend to avoid the process altogether. So it's the anxiety and the potential for discomfort as part of the second stage of the model, where the difficulty arises in relation to positive reflection. And so what we have to do is understand, in a way, we have to name the barriers associated with the emotional response that we have. Another barrier associated with the second stage of reflection is about our personal awareness of ourselves in relation to the work that we do. And this is important simply because if we are not aware of the barriers that we have, or in other words, the assumptions that we hold and how they can become barriers, the presuppositions that we have about teaching and learning, then we can't possibly overcome those barriers. There's no way to address our understanding if we're not first naming and coming to terms with our understanding. And in this way, this can create a serious barrier to overcome, because in a way, as reflective practitioners, we become blind to proper reflection simply because of that barrier created by our own lack of awareness. Another aspect of the second stage, which can become a barrier, is that the emotional response can be such that the individual teacher feels that they perhaps don't know enough about teaching, or they might think that reflection is a very non-practical approach to change, or they could even believe that it's an unnatural thing for them to do. It doesn't feel comfortable for them to do. And these become negative thoughts about the process of reflection. And associated with this can also be the idea around reflection itself. We do consider reflective practice and the reflective practitioner as a primary model of the professional teacher. And so some individuals could actually feel that they're not good enough to do it, not able to do it. And in a sense, by engaging with it, they're engaging with it as an imposter, not as an effective and efficient practitioner. And therefore, this becomes a barrier to the reflection process. Of course, the environment also at this point can affect the process of reflection. If it's an uncomfortable environment for whatever reason, then this can actually prevent the reflective practitioner from engaging with reflection. For example, if written reflections are required and these are used perhaps for appraisal processes, then this can actually create a negative environment for reflection. So journal keeping or any sort of teaching log is a good method for reflection, but actually within the environment that can become a barrier to the reflection process. And simply the fact of having to maintain a journal regularly, day after day, week after week, becomes a barrier in its own right. The process of writing is not automatic for all people. And writing about personal experience, and of course, in terms of the second stage of this model, writing about our emotional response and perhaps even private feelings around the experience, can be very difficult for the individual. And so Boud tries to understand this from a cultural and academic perspective, and actually says that the reflective practitioner, in a sense, is being devalued by these responses. And the personal experience that they have becomes, in a way, a quest for trying to be objective and trying to be as general as possible about what we're learning. And in a sense, because of the environment and because of our emotional response, it becomes very difficult to achieve. So we can see that these barriers are quite immediate. They're very instant in terms of the experience that the individual is having. And the nature of academic writing around these experiences becomes the potential core of the problem. And so what Boud tries to help us understand within this model is that the focus point for these barriers is the teacher themselves. The focus point is the emotions associated with reflection, with recording reflection, and the impact of that on them as teachers that actually become where the barriers need to be overcome.